to start.
Oh wow,
Yes,
humdinger. Any other exclamations on that one?
it's a whodoodly
Who
tweet. This one,
doodly?
yes, this was a wild one. I just tweeted it, I think, from the Tech News Twitter account, and this one. Hold on to your pants and your seat and your chair and whatever's around you. Just go ahead and grab anything sturdy or that might be around you because this one is crazy. Um, let's see. I'm checking the Twitter account now. Tech News Twitter account. Yes, 2 tweets ago, Monica Jasuja, who joins us each day, hopefully she'll be coming in soon. She found an article that's from a publication called Inc. 42, INC 42, and the headline reads, again, hold on to your chair, folks. After cracking down on social media accounts, Twitter and Facebook, the Indian government is reportedly surveilling the popular social audio app called Club
I read that. Yes, yes,
Clubhouse.
yes.
Clubhouse.
That's
Something.
that's.
There's an app. There's an app called Clubhouse, and apparently the Indians are surveilling Clubhouse. And let's read this article. And again, feel free to hold on to anything stable or solid in your vicinity. And you might want to sit down for this one. Government's intelligence agencies are snooping on Clubhouse conversations. Report. Several top security and intelligence agencies of the Indian government have been reportedly snooping into Clubhouse. Where's Akil? Akil, are you in on this? Agent Akil, are you in the room?
He was the mole.
Agent Akil is not here today.
Yes,
Agent Akil has taken the day off while this
yes.
headline is being shared. I don't know
Clubhouse.
where he is.
Where are our Chinese agent? We haven't seen him in quite a while now.
Clubhouse. That's a great point, by the way. Clubhouse records audio conversations and captions of conversations and can be asked to share such information with government agencies under legal demand. The social audio app recently expanded its app on the Android platform and witnessed an explosion in user base in India and other countries after cracking down on social media accounts, Twitter and Facebook. The Indian government reportedly surveilling popular social audio app Clubhouse. It's called Clubhouse. It's an app called Clubhouse.
Is Rega from India? No, right?
Monica, you want to come forth with this one? Where's Monica?
No, Monica is not here. Is Raga? Is it Raga?
No, she could be. She's just, hiding and surveilling, as the article says. So Monica, if you...
Yeah, I am from India. Yeah.
Are you based in India now?
Yeah, I am currently in India, yeah.
And which...
We're not short of Indians here.
Yeah, and
there we go.
And he's the only one. He's the only one on stage now. Oh no, we have Sri Deja.
And Raghav, which government agency are you with?
Unfortunately, I am not with the government over here, at least. I'm a U.S. citizen, so yeah.
Okay. So, so the article continues, quoting unnamed.
That's what we call a flex.
Yeah.
We have Hideja. You're also here now.
Okay.
Are you in India now?
No, I'm guys, just speak up if you need to. It's fine. It's like, let's not put on... All right, let's go.
So, quoting unnamed sources, the report pointed out that multiple central government agencies, including the Intelligence Bureau, Research and Analyst Wing, National Investigation Agency, Enforcement Directorate, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, Central Bureau of Investigation, Narcotics Control Bureaus involved, and the Central Board of Direct Taxes have all been actively tracking public conversations on Clubhouse. It's everything but the goddamn pet agency. The dog and cat agency is not involved, apparently, but it seems like everything else is. Sources also told, maybe we could get the trash pickup agency in here as well. Sources also told The Hindu that Clubhouse does, in fact, record audio conversations and captions of some conversations. Such information can also be passed on to the government. The report added that top security and intelligence agencies have been empowered under 2 different sections of the law, which allows monitoring and surveillance of public conversations and posts on social media. These include blah, blah, blah. Clubhouse's own privacy policy states that it may share personal information of users with law enforcement, Cheryl. So Yeah, protecting and other private parties to protect blah blah blah. So you can read this. Oh, here's a quote from Paul Davison. India is obviously not a single community, but many communities all across India, and it is one of our top markets now as a whole. Clubhouse co-founder Paul Davison highlighted during a virtual press meet on June 3rd, and the article continues. On and on. But the essence of the article is that about 10 different agencies from India, and all of their intelligence agencies, are in and monitoring Clubhouse. No doubt the multitude of Indian rooms, because by the way, if you have the data tracking apps like clubhub.site, where they track the top rooms each day, about half of them now are Indian rooms, and they're some of the largest rooms are now Indian rooms, and they are many oftentimes are having very political discussions, are they not, Raghav?
Yeah, very like I feel like because like tensions have been pretty high in India specifically for the past couple of months. It's been like Clubhouse, especially because it's exploded in India right now. It's been a great place for people to like really like voice their discomfort with the government
Right.
specifically.
Yep.
So,
And by
I, I,
that's a
I
great
just
point.
checked, Tyler.
Hmm?
Monica has been offline for 11 hours.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Monica, let's ping Monica. Let's just make sure she's
When's
okay.
her hair start falling out? Hour
Yeah.
18?
Within a few minutes. Within it doesn't take long. So
And I think Monica has the highest following, by the way,
yeah, but
from India.
let's go ahead. Go ahead, Florian.
Tyler, just from a surveillance point of view, of course,
Yep.
Clubhouse is very different to many other social media platforms. Again, here they would have to chase individual people who have said something in a room. It is not a company. You don't have any public statements of companies. You have individual people talking about their own opinion,
Right.
and it's the company itself. Of course, Clubhouse doesn't state anything. It's just a platform where you can basically exchange.
Yep.
So I think that's a it's a heavy task here to chase millions of people when they have said something in a room at a certain moment. So it's interesting to see what which way a government would want to go to basically influence Clubhouse on
Yes, but how?
avoiding rooms or
but
shutting
like
down rooms.
Florian, you'd be surprised at like what the Indian government is capable of doing when they want to chase down someone who said something against the government. It's pretty like they're pretty petty when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Is
So the
and
Chinese.
yeah, well, how different is that from Twitter? The point that you're making. I mean,
It's actually very different.
yeah.
Because I was just reading this article from Hindu, and it states that Clubhouse has stated that it would share all personal information with law enforcement, and there have been so many cases in India where people were just peacefully marching in protests and they were arrested because they were present in the vicinity during that time, and they were recognized through different pictures taken, and just they can go to any extent, I would say. And I don't want to be hauled back into India when I say this, so I hope this is not being recorded.
But
But
now here's
the
the weird. Let's hold on for 1 second here. India has freedom of speech. Let's start there, right?
yes.
Right.
Nice
So,
joke.
huh?
That's a good.
So it's
Sorry,
okay. So
that was sarcastic.
I mean,
no,
I
I
legally,
mean,
mean,
Raghav, I agree with
I
you.
mean, just for the non-Indians, and most of the room is non-Indian, is it in the Constitution that there is freedom of speech?
It is. So
yeah,
Okay.
Article
yeah.
19 of the Constitution of India guarantees freedom of speech and expression.
Okay.
However,
However, what?
there are exceptions,
Okay. Like what?
and loads of exceptions.
Uh-huh.
So um, they can actually curtail certain rights if they believe that they're infringing the country in any manner. I can actually pull out the list. It's been a while since
Okay.
I've touched base
Well,
with
Yeah, and
Indian
like
constitutional law,
we don't
but
need we don't need the absolute essence of the details. Let me give you an example for Thailand. In Thailand, essentially we have freedom of speech with one incredibly huge exception, which is don't say anything, and I mean
Against the
anything,
king.
about the king, or you will spend the rest of your life in jail. It's that simple. So it's the end of discussion. What's next? So in India, you have freedom of speech, except what?
I think it goes like it's pretty deep in that regard. Like I guess I don't know how best to address this question, but like I think the best way to put it would be anything that offends anyone in power could be like used to basically put you in jail. Because like I mean, so one of the biggest creators on Clubhouse from India right now is this guy called Tanmay Bhatt, right? He's a comedian. So they actually like had this roast a couple of years ago, and every member of that comedy collective who hosted the roast basically had like an FIR put against them. And so like I think it's like it basically borders, and like I think the reason that happened was also because like they said some stuff about like a lot of politicians and like film stars and like national icons, and that offended a lot of people. So like if it offends a lot of people or like people in power, it that's pretty much enough.
Okay, so you can offend
So
one.
that's
Wait, hold on. So you can say you can offend one person, right? I can say Raghav, you're a dumbass, and then nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah, nothing's gonna happen then, but yeah.
Right. And what if that person is a person, a politician? I can say, hey, you politician, you're a dumbass. But if it's one person,
Um,
it's okay.
yeah, it depends on what kind of politician it is, but
Okay,
like usually like
now I'm starting to see the problem. There's a lot of what ifs, and it's very
yeah,
nebulous. Okay, now that's where you're going to get in trouble, and that's unfortunate. So looks like Clubhouse might be in very deep shit, and that's why I'm going through this process to figure out exactly what the Indian politicians are going to be thinking when they're analyzing whether or not they are in violation. And of course, based on what you're telling me, oh, Clubhouse is utterly screwed based on your interpretation of what's legal and what's not.
yeah.
So the
Oh
worst case
shit.
scenario. So the worst case scenario is they just ban Clubhouse, right? So that's the worst case scenario.
Yes.
Yeah,
No.
but in a way, if you look at this, the trend, it's not just an Indian trend. You know, you have populist governments coming up. They take power. They slowly move the country, like in probably, many others you could cite it towards a totalitarian system where the government is surveying you specifically online, and then it's cutting, the freedom, what you do. I mean, you could even say that under Trump, similar things happened. Any company who would say anything against him, basically, he would start to attack them, even financially, publicly, and chase them. So, in the same sense, that's what we can see here now. My question is rather, because this is not about companies having a public opinion here on Clubhouse. It is individual people. In Twitter, you have public, or you have companies which have accounts and have an opinion,
But
and then you have
Florian,
a government.
we just spoke to people on the ground, and we realized that it doesn't matter if it's individuals can be taken. The government is of the position that this app is being used to enable conversations that are in the gray area of illegality, not so different from Twitter, and hence the government can. It wouldn't be out of character for the government to shut down Clubhouse.
again, so here's where I disagree a bit. With Twitter as well, the Supreme Court had to come out and say that your public has a right to express their opinion. You cannot ask them to take down tweets or take any action because you don't like a tweet, right? So it's very similar to that. So on the face of it, on paper,
Oh, so
we
what they hang
have
on? Okay,
freedom of speech, but it's the government who doesn't like this freedom of speech because they believe that what their ideology is what should be followed by everyone.
okay.
Does that
So
make it simpler?
yes, but now the room has doubled in size. So welcome everybody to Tech News Around the World. The top headline of the day, where I'm still on the first article because we only started 15 minutes ago, is the fact that it is now being reported that India has all of their intelligence agencies and some of their non-intelligence agencies, like the tax agency and my God, all kinds of a whole dozen of agencies are in Clubhouse, monitoring Clubhouse, surveilling Clubhouse, with the eye of wondering if they should, what they should do about Clubhouse in India, similar to what they're doing with Twitter and Facebook and WhatsApp. And the current government is very sensitive to critical comments. And at this point about Twitter, where currently they are telling Twitter, you must remove these tweets or else. And actually, they even there was a memo that was sent where the wording was very severe consequences, something, because it's not, they've never said we're actually going to ban you. They just say you have to remove these tweets or else. And then there was a separate memo that said Twitter must comply or there will be very severe consequences. So you can connect those two dots together. I interpret severe consequences however you like, but the point is they're not necessarily banning Twitter. They are just going to they're asking Twitter to remove tweets, or but in the case of Clubhouse, you cannot ask Clubhouse to remove conversations, but you could ask Clubhouse to ban users. So
Correct.
that could be the first step. The first step would be, hey Clubhouse, we're just going to ask that you remove that comedian who's saying things we don't like, and this Rhodesia lady, she seems crazy. Let's get her out of here. And whoever else they don't like, they are going to start there, and hopefully that will solve it. And if it doesn't, then the app itself could come under a little more pressure, right? That seems like the more logical step process forward.
So there would be another button, basically. Now you can report someone or throw someone off the stage if it disturbs, and then here you would have a government agency saying we flag this person for, going against us.
Yeah, no, I mean, what would
Oh,
happen is what people do with YouTube, which is they just flag it. The government will make a list of everything of the people they find offensive, and tell Clubhouse you must remove these accounts from your app because it violates our,
Okay, wait. Clubhouse is not in India yet, right? As in, there's
it
no
is.
office in India. So, in
Oh, you
office
mean
in India?
as an
Yeah,
office?
they have no
No,
entity in India, so they can't do anything to Clubhouse.
yeah, of
They can
course they
only
can.
block Clubhouse. That's all they can do.
Correct. They could shut off Clubhouse in India, right?
There's still fireside.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They're,
all,
they're not
and
gonna
just
they're
all,
not
just,
gonna
all
close
digesting,
Clubhouse.
Big
They're,
Brother's
they're,
watching you.
they're
well
not
that
gonna close Clubhouse.
the
Yeah, yeah.
the logical first step is they're gonna, if they find offensive people, because it's not tweets, you can't remove conversations in Clubhouse. If they find offensive people, they're gonna ask Clubhouse to ban those people, and if Clubhouse doesn't comply, but of course I'm almost certain that they will in that case, because then they risk being shut out of India if they don't.
Yeah, they'll put them under pressure. And the other thing I just want to say to the points that Ridija and Raghav saying, in India, business and especially the current government, business and government are very closely linked, right? So a price can be paid in many different ways, right? It's more subtle. It's not just if you, and it's the same as China. You lose Guanxi, right? When you screw up with the government over a period of time, immediately they might not put you in jail. But here's the thing: if you're a business person and you support some of these political rooms, I've noticed, I've been to a number of these political rooms, and I've been emailing a couple of very high level business people that are on Clubhouse. They don't go on stage. I asked them, like, why aren't you going on stage with a point of view on this? And they say, no, I'm not going on stage here because the repercussions won't come immediately, but they'll come in terms of, Mukesh Ambani won't do business with you. How did that suddenly happen? My contract just went. I'm in the telecoms business. My contract just went, right? And so those kind of things start happening. And that happens in a lot of these countries where there's a sort of state capitalism, where you've got the country, the business and the government are very, very closely linked. That happens in the US. I don't want to go into an aboutism discussion here. Of course, there's influence between business but it's more transparent, and there's, it's kind of openly collaborative, if you like.
So
But
Renjit, oh, go ahead.
but
Go ahead.
probably
Sorry.
but probably an easier step for government would be to basically tell, for example, Clubhouse, okay, whenever there's a room which has a critical title against the government, so basically that room just shuttle ban it, so we don't people, they don't have the visibility, and you're not having 5,000 people getting heated here on a discussion, but it's a small thing, so it's not. Could be also in a very subtle way that you would not recognize it necessarily. Only that you create a room and you would have a very few people knowing about it.
Yeah, oh, you could have closed rooms, of course. Yeah, but it's clear to me now what's going to happen is they're here, they're listening, they're making notes of people who are saying things they don't like, and they're going to pass that list off to Clubhouse and say, ban these people. And Clubhouse has banned lots of people already, all the time. And that what they normally do is a 7-day suspension. And I've had friends who have had 7-day suspensions. In fact, my buddy Jason had a 7-day suspension, or a 5-day suspension. And I imagine Clubhouse will recommend that. They'll say, oh, okay, how about this? How about we give them a 5-day suspension? And the government might say, okay, yeah, that'll send them a nice little warning, and maybe they'll do that, or it might be more of a ban. But there's definitely baby steps between where we are today and a complete shutdown. So there's a lot of room for negotiation on the table. Yeah.
But it's a huge impact on individual rights of freedom of speech, because it's not like Twitter where you go against the company and you basically say take that off.
Yeah, but
Here, this
Florian,
is
then
you know
this in America they would say, no, no, this is how we're not impeding your freedom of speech. It's called freedom of reach. This is an app. You're welcome to walk around India saying whatever the hell you want. You're just not able to say it on this app where we don't have to allow you on this app. There's no right to be on Clubhouse in India.
very good point. Yeah,
That's
freedom
the
of
American freedom
freedom
of
of
reach, we're
reach. Yeah.
calling. Yeah, but that's what we're calling it in America, and that's why Donald Trump, even as president, didn't have the right to be on Facebook or Twitter. He didn't have freedom of reach. We're calling it now in the tech biz. He has freedom of speech. He can say whatever the well he wants, but the app doesn't. He doesn't have a right to be on Twitter or on Facebook, and that's called freedom of reach. And then, of course, the government in the U.S. But other democracies like India, this is where it's going to get really complicated in the weeks and months and years to come, especially during elections. Is do political candidates have freedom of reach, because political candidates are supposed to be treated equally and given equal airtime, as it's called, in traditional media? In the days of television and radio, the radios and TVs were, had to be very careful about how many minutes of airtime they gave to, and newspapers as well. So as social media as an extension of those things, then it gets very interesting. Anyway, so I think we figured it out. So it turns out uh, there's a lot of the Indian government is understandably very concerned about what's being said on this platform. And by the way, not just the Indian government. By no means are we in this case singling out. It started as a headline today that Monica from India shared, that the government is here and a lot of agencies are here and they're monitoring. And I can assure you they are not the only one. Very notably, you better bet everything you have that the Russian intelligence agencies are up in here listening to these huge Russian rooms, because those are also some of the largest rooms in Clubhouse. And I'm sure they're listening with intense fascination, because Clubhouse is a place where people from those countries can get together and speak essentially freely, um, without, and I imagine the Indians are doing precisely this, are they not, Raghav, in some of those incredibly large rooms
Yeah,
they're
no,
hosting?
because it's a very conversational stuff, right? Like it's very easy for people to say what they're actually feeling. It's less like calculated than like let's say text messages, which could be like a little
Right,
less, they could be like slightly toned down
right.
from like what they actually feel. So yeah.
Yeah, same thing's happening with Thailand, by the way, because Thailand has an interesting political environment at the moment, and there's a large students, and notably are want to see change, and they are creating some of the largest rooms in Clubhouse and have been ever since they opened a month or two ago. And now you're seeing the same in India, and you're going to see it's going to get really interesting in these more border cases like Turkey and some Middle Eastern countries, where it's good. And it's
So
gonna.
Tyler
Tyler,
is Thai.
I wouldn't put it past the Maz AI hacker guys watching those who are watching,
Yeah.
watching those who are watching. So
Wow.
that
Oh,
Tyler
is
I got to get my
is Thaksin
Elvis
still speaking? Is Thaksin still speaking on Clubhouse?
Taxon. I have not heard if
Yeah.
he is or not. Yeah,
It
and
was on paper.
yeah, no doubt Thailand would tell Clubhouse not to have Taxon in Clubhouse, but yeah, that's that. For those who don't know, that's really interesting, and to highlight all of this political stuff. Thailand is my favorite example that I'm aware of. I'm sure there are others where Thailand had a democratically elected prime minister named Thaksin, who was removed due to a coup, a military coup. And Thaksin went to the UN General Assembly in New York City at the UN headquarters, as all the prime ministers do every September. And while he was there, the army rolled the tanks around his, all the prime minister residence, and said, "No need to come back, sir. Your residence is surrounded by the military, so you can go ahead and stay in New York as long as you like." And then that started the military being in power here. And then there was anyway, so Thaksin's been removed, and then there was a new election, and in that election, Thaksin's sister won the election, which kind of did help prove the point that there is a bit of nepotism and corruption going on. And so then the sister was removed, and in a second coup, and so now Thaksin's been outside of Thailand for quite a while, and then Clubhouse starts up, and a lot of the folks who don't like the current military government are in Clubhouse, strategizing about organizing very large protests in Bangkok, and tens of thousands of people. And that's why the Thai rooms were so incredibly popular in Clubhouse. And they were the largest rooms in Clubhouse, actually. And I only know that because I'm in Thailand and I can read a bit of Thai and I see the Thai rooms, and they're massive. They have 8,000 capacity all the time. And then I realized, actually, it was reported in Thailand here that Thaksin himself, who's been in quote unquote, exile, had joined these Thai rooms and was speaking to his, fans, for lack of a better word. And that's where it got super interesting. And that's when all of a sudden all of the Thai ministers started coming in. And we even had the education minister started coming into tech news around the world and even jumping on stage and asking for help. Hey, are there any ed tech companies in here that might want to come into Thailand? I was like, that's awesome. How fantastic is this? He came in here because he heard Thaksin
The
was in the app.
recruitment pipeline. This is the
Yeah,
recruitment pipeline.
I loved it. And he's a really lovely guy, by the way. And he was like, we could use help with connectivity and Wi-Fi and ed tech, and you guys are geeks, and let's talk. I was very moved by
Send
that.
him, send him to the Digital Inclusion Club
For
room
sure.
right now.
For
Just to
sure.
do the little promo.
Yeah. But
Hey
anyway,
Trevor, just
yeah,
just quickly on that, like if
yeah.
there are people out there in the audience and they're looking for new roles and stuff, like I won't make anything out of it, but like I am getting a lot of people a lot of connections in the other AI maths cyber rooms that are basically looking for really good talent. So this may be a risk, but yeah, you can DM me. All right.
Yep. And then Ranjit, my buddy from Stockholm, who's obviously originally from India, you wanted to comment on what's going on?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I mean, I have been in Clubhouse from February, and I was expecting this news much early, not because people were talking against government or the state governments in India, because people were talking about government right from the day I joined. There were multiple rooms every day, and the same group of people were conducting different rooms with, you know. Rooms like, is Modi a genocide creator, or those kind of, captions. So those were running, people were reporting those rooms in Twitter and other places. So those were there from, I think, 2-3 months ago. But I personally feel that this is much beyond that. After the India has been open for Clubhouse, because I think a few days back I reported that in the place from where I come from, south of India, where there are hardly 3 times the population of Sweden. Clubhouse rooms were running like 24 hours. I actually slept yesterday around 2:30 in the morning because of one room where a lot of heated discussion were going on, where a celebrity is being abused by a group of people for last 48 hours plus in multiple rooms. So these kind of things are happening. So it is much beyond the government, actually. And there are screen recordings of everything. All this, people were recording the audio and posting it in Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. So this is much beyond the government. There are drugs sold through Clubhouse rooms. There is so-called dating happening through Clubhouse rooms, which the intention is much beyond that. So there are much better things happening, or much bigger things happening through Clubhouse. So, and another thing is, it's pretty easy to organize a riot through Clubhouse. It's very easy, and that has happened in my place in my state last week.
This is a
So government is seeing those.
Thank you, Ranjit. That's a great point, and that's why governments are so concerned, to be honest, which just as Twitter had what they call the Arab Spring, and people were using Twitter as a communication tool. Well, Twitter is nothing compared to Clubhouse and its ability to organize people, because of the immediacy and the group, the ability to really communicate effectively in a group, which is not easy to do in Twitter. And so you can understand why governments who are worried about, protests, or anybody who's worried about protests would naturally be worried about any app that allows people to organize in such an efficient way, for good or bad. And that really is the beauty of Clubhouse, is it allows people to organize for good. And I'm very optimistic that net that's what it
Tyler,
will lead to. Yeah. Yeah.
that, I just wanted to highlight that the same is happening with Colombia, with the social unrest. And yesterday there was someone in a room talking about how a lot of people that have been blocked in Colombia, that have been blocked from Facebook and from Twitter, are using Clubhouse to mobilize people
Yeah.
for protests. And what she was talking about specifically was that the government hasn't picked up on it yet, and she was wondering when that was going to happen. And something that she suggested was how much she loves this room and how much you really do cover news from all over the world. And she was talking about this as this room and your tech news around the world as an example of unity and
Yeah.
diversity of news from all over. So there you go.
100%. I mean, today just happens to be this headline from India that the intelligence agencies are there. And I think the fair thing to state is, in the little exploration we're doing, is it's safe to assume that intelligence agencies from every country are up in these rooms, especially the countries that are concerned about what people are saying. And if they are concerned that people might form protests, even America is going to be very concerned if there's far right or far left groups, using apps, not just Clubhouse, any app, for protests. And so this is just the digital social media effect and hygiene that governments are doing in 2021, Dave.
It's good.
And
It's good
Tyler,
balance.
oh,
Sorry, go on, Alice. Go on.
no, Tyler, I have some breaking news, but it's not a story yet. It's an experience.
Okay.
And full disclaimer for India, because one of my partners is India. I was in an AI room, AI for the future, with some DoD people in. This was earlier, Clubhouse, okay, in the US. And this has been happening a lot, which is, I didn't know. There was a troll. He had an Indian accent, or he appeared to, okay, could have been masked. And no one could find him, and he wasn't on stage. And this is the third time this has happened on Clubhouse. I didn't
Okay.
even know this. And he was just saying, shut up, get off the stage. He could disrupt the entire conversation from the speakers. We had to close the room down. And that room, I think, had about 800 people on average. And there were several physicists and scientists in the room, and some people I know from UC San Diego and so forth. But you had some top people in that room that were talking about AI and what the future meant. And he just kept saying, shut up, get off, anytime anyone spoke. And finally, they just had to close down the room and figure out. But Anton Alexander, he works in AI, he was saying that this is a protocol in Clubhouse that's a ghost. So it wasn't one of the speakers, but somehow he's ghosting the operation. So maybe that'll be written about soon, but it was
I
intriguing to me. Go
I
ahead.
have a little bit of insight on this.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
I grew up essentially in the MedTech 24 lobby here. And so I spent a lot of time, and there's a lot of quote unquote open mics. And essentially, this is all running on a protocol or similar to something called SIP. So if you've ever noticed, anytime you log in, you just get a 4-digit code to log in. That's the only security layer, essentially. So these guys get on stage and they work on cracking everybody's code in hopes that each time they grab Tyler's code, each time they grab JT's, they're building a map to get the master code for the room. Once the master code's been had, they control the room. So what'll happen is you'll sometimes get people on stage that never say a word. And we'd get that in the 24-hour rooms. And people would be there for hours at a time. And we thought they were essentially brute forcing the master key. And at some point, we'd lose the room and have to restart it. So I think that's what's going on.
Thanks,
Wow.
Chris. And that's wild because Brian Keating was trying to figure it out. And he was on the stage as well, the physicist, but we were talking together. And that's just crazy how things could be derailed. But thank you, Chris, for
Yeah,
that
for us,
input.
it was a lot of anytime there were Iranian people in the room, for us in the 24-hour rooms, we would notice the bombardment of that type of activity would come in. You would have one or two people with like nothing in their profile raise their hands, come on stage, they don't say anything, and then all of a sudden, you get this wave of people and then you lose the room.
Yeah, I was also in that Anton room. I think I couldn't commend Anton on
Because
that room
remember, every time you
highly
come
enough.
on stage, you actually have a valid key to speak.
Hmm.
And so, like, as they add friends on stage, they get more and more valid keys with the hope to get the master key for the room. And once they have it, the ghost or whatever can happen.
Chris, can I
Great
ask
insight.
Chris, can I ask, do those, or did you find those people had genuine bios so you can actually identify them outside of Clubhouse? They had some kind of, you could go to LinkedIn or you can
Yeah. I
search them
mean,
on Google. You
because
could, they said they're legit people sit on
yeah,
there.
that's the one unique layer about Clubhouse is that, you do actually authenticate with Instagram in order to link that to your profile via the clickable link. Right? So like in order to get that clickable link, you're actually validating both
But if they could
Twitter
have
and
they could
Instagram.
make up an Instagram account. I mean, there's several
Yeah,
people
of
that you
course. Yeah,
cannot
yeah.
find
It's
beyond.
it's just
There's no name.
it's
It's like it's
yeah,
just a
it's
pseudonym.
really it's really this calculation of how much time they're willing to invest in a fake account, you know? Like it takes a few minutes. So like if you're dealing with a person that is targeting a individual, sure, they're going to take the time to do that to get around your, but if these guys are just amateurs or trolls, they don't really care, so they're going to create a ton of accounts. They don't even have profiles or pictures. And when we were in the medtech rooms, we're very welcoming. It's a lobby, so we just let anybody on stage, and they use that as an early kind of I don't know, beta testing or proving ground. So
No, it's
Okay.
cool insight. And I wanted to just go back to Tyler. I thought you
Hmm?
balanced that really well because my mindset was purely in like 1984 Big Brother watching us, like from a government perspective. But I really like the way you pulled out the kind of, there's two sides to it, i.e., one is more protection for the good of the people, as well as the kind of, the kind of spooks watching. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, well, here speaking on the American side of this, a headline is breaking right now, and it's actually the second largest story in all of the tech journalism sphere at the moment, being reported by the New York Times, CNN, Gizmodo, CNET, The Verge, etc., and all over the Twitter sphere. Is that the Department of Justice under Donald Trump forced Apple to reveal data from two Congress people, both Democrats, as part of Trump's leaker crusade. And I just tweeted this from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, which is the first letters of tech news around the world. And you can read this article for yourself, but there's a lot of other publications putting out this story because it's such a big story. It recently came to light. Well, apparently, it says Trump reportedly targeted the House Intelligence Committee as well as media outlets. It recently came to light that Trump era Department of Justice quietly seized phone records of journalists at the Washington Post, CNN, the New York Times to suss out their sources as part of the Trump administration's rabid crackdown on leakers. It apparently the witch hunt didn't stop there. In 2017 and 18, a grand jury compelled Apple to fork over metadata from the accounts of at least two Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee. Those are very high-ranking people in Congress, according to the New York Times. So it's very likely true. The subpoena also covered records from at least a dozen people connected to the committee members, including aides, family members, and one minor. Records of Representatives Adam Schiff in California, in Los Angeles, actually, in Pasadena, who Adam Schiff was probably the most anti-Trump person on the Democrats, and Adam was really leading sort of the anti-Trump sentiment from the Democrat side. So records of Adam Schiff, committee chairman and frequent target of Trump's playground insults, were among those seized, sources familiar with the matter told the New York Times. Apple provided the agency, the Department of Justice, with metadata and account information, but did not share photos, emails, or other content. A person familiar with the inquiry told the Times that's hardly a comfort given the well demonstrated fact that you can still learn a shit ton, and that's it. The journalist literally wrote the words, you can still learn a shit ton about a person from their metadata, where they are, what they're up to, especially when combined with publicly available info such as their social media posts. And that is correct. That journalist is correct. That has been demonstrated many times, that if you add metadata to other known facts, that you can learn pretty much everything you know. So the fact that Apple did reveal metadata about incredibly, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. This is huge. No wonder it's being reported everywhere that Trump forced Apple to reveal metadata about his main political opponent. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, is wow. This is big news, and the New York Times is really the one that is reporting this, and all the other journalists are kind of amplifying it apparently. So I guess I would encourage you to read the New York Times version. But here's more of the essence of what's happening here. Prosecutors found no evidence over the years. In the wake of the report that just came out, Adam Schiff called for the Inspector General to investigate Trump's weaponization of law enforcement and what he denounced as terrible abuse of power. And here's a quote: "It also makes the Department of Justice just a fully owned subsidiary of the president's personal legal interests and political interests," he told Rachel Maddow yesterday. The Department of Justice promised to stop secretly obtaining the records of journalists on Saturday after coming under fire from media outlets, lawmakers, and President Joe Biden, who condemned the practice as simply wrong in response to the agency's latest disclosures. And indeed, it's very concerning because a president using the Department of Justice, which was, remind who Trump's appointed person at the Department of Justice was, the guy with the
Sessions.
yeah, but then after Sessions, there was the other guy,
Bill Barr.
Bill Barr. Thank you. Bill Barr was basically just taking marching orders directly from Trump, which is breaks the whole balance of power in the U.S. between the judicial and the executive branches. Those are supposed to work autonomously, independently, and essentially Bill Barr was doing whatever Trump wanted, which means the executive branch was controlling the judicial branch, and that's where you can get incredible abuses of power, which which Adam Schiff said himself, and which Joe Biden agreed. This is just simply wrong. That should never happen, and that's why we need to be very careful of the president's ability to put whoever somebody in charge of the Department of Justice, as did, because then that person might become overly loyal to the person who put them in charge of the Department of Justice. And that's why the Department of Justice was willing to go after Trump's political opponents and journalists. And that's where it gets very concerning, because the journalists are sort of the fourth balance of power. And if the Department of Justice is able to go after journalists and get data on journalists and get to their sources, because the sources need to remain anonymous. And that is a critical part of a functioning democracy, is journalists being able to report from people who are able to maintain anonymity. And if the Department of Justice is going after the technical providers reveal the emails of the sources of the journalists, now they're going to go after the whistleblowers directly and go after the sources of the journalists directly, and then you don't have whistleblowers anymore, and then you don't have people speaking truth to power anymore, and then next thing you know, you don't have a democracy anymore. And that's how you can see how serious that whole issue is if you really start connecting the dots, as we should.
Tyler,
Yes.
the other piece to that is that Vice President Kamala Harris, when she was Senator Harris, pushed Bill Barr kind of, in a congressional hearing, in asking whether he had been asked or directed by anyone in the White House to
Yep.
investigate or to track anyone. And he
And
danced
he
around it.
you got to watch that video. Lakeisha, you're exactly 1,000% correct. And he kept saying, what do you mean by is? What do you mean by
And she was
was?
so on point. I mean, she
Yeah.
used several different
Yes.
synonyms
Let me
for
ask you
is.
again. Let me ask you, like you're 5 years old. Did you at any time touch your nose? Well, what do you mean touch? What do you mean nose? What's a nose? What by touch? Do you mean with my hand? It was just an absurd comedy, because he was caught because he's under oath and he can't. If he lies in that situation, then he's committed a perjury essentially, and he could put his ass in jail if he lies in that instance. So all he could do was say, "What do you mean by was? What do you mean by is? let's deflect this for how much time is left in this hearing? 30 minutes? Let's see if I can ramble for 30 minutes until the session is over. And she knew what he was doing. And everyone knew who's really on the inside of what's happening in the government in the US knew, oh, he's caught now. He's under oath. She's got the gun to his head. Let's see what he does. And he just tried to run out the clock, basically. It was wild. You're exactly right, Lakeisha. That was a really interesting moment of American political history for those who were up to speed on what actually was happening in that moment. Thank you for reminding us. I should, if somebody can find that moment, that video, I'll retweet that as well, just so folks can get up to speed on how American politics works. That was an amazing moment. Thank you for the reminder. And so that I highlight this to show that tech and how governments can pressure tech, and in this case, the American government, Donald Trump using the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, who he put in power, and Bill Barr putting pressure on Apple, not Clubhouse, Apple, who goes to incredible lengths and pains to architect itself so that it can't reveal the photos, that if the government should ever come knocking and asking for this information, Apple wants to be able to say, sorry, Charlie, we don't have it. We intentionally architected ourselves so that we can't give you what you're asking for. And otherwise, Apple would have been utterly screwed. The government would have said, no, crack that server open and give us everything we are asking for, because this is our country and you're going to do what we say. And here's an example of, we often talk about India telling Twitter what to do or Russia telling Twitter what to do. Here's an example of America telling Apple what to do or else. And Apple knew that day would come, and Apple intentionally architected its data structures in a way to say, hey, we don't have that data. And that's why in the last Apple event that we just had here 2 or 3 days ago, you heard them jump up and down repeatedly saying, your data, Apple never, ever, ever has access and could never have access, even if we wanted to your health data. You remember them repeating that over and over? And now you know why they're repeating this over and over, because if you are Adam Schiff and you're Trump's biggest political opponent, you better believe Trump would have been like, give me all of his data from his Apple Watch. And Apple's going to be like, sorry, Charlie, we built that system knowing you would come asking for that, and to break democracy as we know it. And that's why we went to extra lengths, knowing that this data we are collecting could potentially someday ruin the American democracy system. And so we built it with that in mind. And that's why we went to such great lengths to intentionally remove ourselves from being able to see that data, even if we wanted to. And thank you for trying to ruin American democracy, that, 200, the longest running democracy on the planet. And we as Apple understood the essence of all of that. And it's wild. That's how wild that is at the end of the day. Whew.
I sent the tweet.
Yes, thank you, Lakeisha. I will retweet it right now. And this is homework, political homework for those who on this issue of government and data and what can governments do at the end of the day. And this plays right into Bitcoin and blockchains, because if the governments are going to come down on this stuff, how do you build systems like Apple did in this case, where unfortunately they did have the metadata and they were forced to give over the metadata on Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Bill Poppy was one step ahead of you, and so was Alex Parsons. I think
Awesome.
spying did occur was the quote. I'm retweeting both of these of William Barr's stumped by Kamala Harris's question, or pretending to be stumped might be a little more accurate. It's wild. Oh, now I see yours, Lakeisha, as well. This was, you got to watch these videos where now Vice President Kamala Harris had oh man, you got to watch these, and watch Cory Booker sitting next to Kamala Harris. The eyes of these people, they know that this is American history in the making. Just watch the faces of the people as she's questioning him, especially Cory Booker sitting next to her. Holy shit, that is wild. Okay.
I wonder what the
Enough.
facial recognition stuff would say about it, Tyler.
Yeah.
Alert, 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 danger,
Yes.
danger.
Yes, exactly right. So since we've been having this wonderful political discussion, and it won't be the last time, because so much tech is running. Here's the 50,000 foot view on all this. Tech is getting so powerful that it used to be people didn't worry about tech at all because the geeks were just playing around with bulletin board systems where we were sharing little chat rooms with each other. And that did get the attention of newspapers eventually. And then tech grew beyond communications into music with the MP3 file was created, and then we started sharing those files, and that greatly disrupted the music industry in the form of Napster, which my friend Cal here bought, by the way. And then the music industry freaked out. Apple fixed the problem by creating the iTunes store, and then Spotify came along and disrupted them, and now we've got Spotify. But then Hollywood started getting, there was the MP4 file, which allowed for videos. And then YouTube came along, and that worried the movie industry in Hollywood. And then tech started getting into figuring out ways to move money around with PayPal, and that got the banks worried. And then you've got the banks are being disrupted by the fintechs, and then you've got tech going into all other categories: med tech, fintech, health tech, green tech, and now it's going into gov tech, and now it's disrupting the governments, and now the governments are very worried, and that's where shit hits the fan, folks. And that's why we're sharing these videos, because it's an instance of where that's why crypto is so incredibly interesting, because it's potentially threatening to governments in some sense, ultimately. And that's why they realize it, some of them. And that's why you're seeing so much friction. And with friction, there's smoke and eventually fire. And that's the stage that we are at here in the tech space. And that's why we are focusing on this. And that's why Nigeria is shutting down Twitter. And that's why India's snooping in Clubhouse. And that was the headline that started this whole conversation. And I'm telling you, all the governments are listening to all the social networks, and particularly Clubhouse, because of how efficient and magical it is in letting people, bring their ideas together. And that, for some governments, for some cases, that's fantastic, because we could potentially solve the climate crisis due to Clubhouse. But for some governments who don't like seeing their citizens congregate and plan and strategize, it can be very potentially worrying. And so it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out, in which governments, how they respond to Clubhouse, etc. So that's let's put a pause on that for now. No doubt it'll come back up tomorrow.
One headline to take forward your
Yeah.
kind of history of tech.
Yeah.
Like obviously we're all facing into the future. Like quantum, right? I put out one that Sky put out where Honeywell bought this small, well, I don't know how much they bought it for, but they're putting 200 million into it. But it's quantum, what's it called again? Cambridge Quantum.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, quantum is much talked about, but we haven't got many evidences of the use cases. But I suppose I just wanted to put it out there, Tanner, in terms of like, I think it goes along that thread that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The geeks in chat rooms through to Bitcoin and quantum, like, because I think that's going to be the next big like turbocharging thing in tech.
Well, more than you might think, Dave, because here's by the way, that story I just read about the Department of Justice, forcing Apple to share metadata on Adam Schiff, Trump's biggest political opponent. That was the second biggest story in the tech sphere. The biggest story in the tech sphere at the moment is this one. We now have the newest high-profile ransomware attack. Any guess who it is? What industry they are in? Well, it's none other than Electronic Arts,
Yes.
the huge video game powerhouse, the maker of FIFA 21 and Frostbite and many of the world's largest video games. So hackers steal a wealth of data from the game giant EA, Electronic Arts. Hackers have broken into the gaming giant Electronic Arts, the publisher
Tyler,
of Battle.
let me see if I can get the president. One sec. So this is going to be a
Okay.
tough one, but let me see if he's awake.
Okay.
You gotta love this room.
Hackers have broken into gaming giant Electronic Arts, the publisher of Battlefield, FIFA, The Sims, and they stole a wealth of game source code and related internal tools. Here's a quote: "You have full capability of exploiting on all EA services," the hackers claimed in various posts on underground hacking forums, which have been confirmed. A source with access to the forums, some of which are locked from public, provided to this journalist in screenshots. And one more quote here: only serious members of Only serious members, all other would be ignored, the hackers wrote in their post. And they're using broken English, again, perhaps because they are. They're speaking in Russian, and which they're somewhere in that part of the world, and that's a consistent theme of these big ransomware hacks, is that they are from Eastern Europe, Russian-speaking parts of Eastern Europe, or Russia itself. It's often been reported. And why is this interesting, and how does this relate to the previous story? This is the new sort of front of disruption, as we were talking about how tech was disrupting industries like the music industry and Hollywood and the banks, and now the medical industry and even the government. And now there's this new counter movement of how tech is being used to attack and hold all kinds of companies for ransom. And now it's the gaming industry is being held for ransom. And now that EA has been attacked, all of their competitors, although these gaming companies have a friendly competitorship nature with each other, now they're all worried about being attacked, actually. And that's one of the other headlines. And that's unfortunate that EA, it says the EA confirms that it has suffered a data breach after hackers claim they have 780 gigabytes of data, including source code for FIFA 21 and their other big intellectual properties. And that's a very big concern indeed. But no doubt we will continue to hear more about this as that story unfolds. The other biggest headlines in the tech sphere at the moment is that Apple has hired somebody named Ulrich Kranz, who ran the development teams for BMW's i3 and i8. And why is that interesting, that Apple would hire such a senior person from BMW's electronic vehicle division? Well,
because they're not working on an EV car.
But yeah, because clearly Apple's not working on their own EV car.
No, they're not working on it.
Why would you hire BMW's head of their EV cars, Apple? That's not suspicious at all. And a journalist about 4
Tyler,
days
the
ago.
days of Apple working on a car, the golden days are dead, much like venture capital.
Yes.
That's good, Chris.
Yeah. So what Chris is referring to is a New York Times journalist who very foolishly is trying to assume that the gold, the trends, things aren't what they seem. Apple hiring the head of BMW's EVs and co-founded BMW's co-founded the self-driving electrical vehicle called Canoe. So it's clearly Apple is in the early stages of building a self-driving vehicle.
Oh, dude, this is so cool because I live in Newbury Park. That's where Design Works is here, and so all the BMW's cars are built and designed up here. And I'm in the manufacturing industry, and one of my buddies is doing a lot of work for Canoe. So all this is starting to make sense now. Sorry.
No, so I
Did you
just
say
tweeted.
Newbury Park, Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
I graduated from Newbury Park High School. We'll talk offline.
What's
All
up?
right.
Hey,
So,
have you guys seen the Apple advert yet? Tyler, have you seen it? Like the TV advert? Maybe not.
for the
Like
Apple
anyone
car?
in the States? No. The advert for Apple, like the mainstream consumer advert.
TV.
Yeah, the
Dave,
TV.
it's TV. What's
Which
TV?
product?
I know, which is why I had to checkpoint it, right? But you guys, it would be cool to Google it because it basically puts into visual what we talk about in this room in terms of data. I'll not spoil it, but it's a guy and he walks in somewhere and he buys something and the manager from that shop walks out after him. I can spoil it if you want, but it basically puts in a visual state this whole point about why Apple's marketing on we don't keep your data, buddies. We don't do that. I recommend it anyway.
Well, send me the article so that I can tweet it and share it with everybody.
Yeah,
But
will do.
while we are on the EV story,
Sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting, Tyler.
yes,
I tried calling. I think the man's got bigger problems right now.
yeah, no
So I've
doubt.
authenticated it to you.
But next time one of the world's biggest companies has the world's biggest hack, let's try and get them into the room. Hey, would you mind? I understand your global powerhouse of a company is going through an existential crisis, but if you could just pop in here for a second. But it was worth trying.
For
Thank
us,
you
can
for
make it happen though.
yes,
He's
he
made
has
stuff
made it
happen.
happen in the past. So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, that is the future of tech news around the world. In case it's not obvious to everybody yet, that as these rooms, by the way, this room continues to grow every day, every week, and we continue to
Guys,
set record numbers.
I authenticated it to you. It's in your Twitter feed.
I know,
It's
no,
there.
I know
I'm
you.
no
You always
bullshit.
do show. I know you every time you've shared the receipts in the back end, so we know you're not shitting. So, but the point is that due to Faraz, who has brought in incredible people from time to time, and that's part of the fun of this format. Is as this room continues to grow and we reach record numbers every week, we're very soon going to get to a point where I will start bringing in very notable speakers, which, by the way, I am later tonight, 6 hours from now, when we meet again. Our friend Justin has arranged to bring in a really interesting data company CEO to help us do a little interview about his very big data company and add additional important insights that only he has around data and personal data and all of these tech companies and their data and your data. And that is paving the road for when we will start bringing in even more high profile executives, like my friend Peter, who is the chief product officer of Tesla. And why do I mention that? Well, because one of the other biggest newses in tech is the fact that Tesla just did a big live stream showcase event with Elon Musk showing off Tesla's fastest car yet, called the Model S Plaid. The vehicle can reach 60 miles per hour in less than 2 seconds. And in case you don't understand just how fast that is, normally you would need to pay millions and millions and millions of dollars to get a car that goes that fast, and yet this car does it for an absolute fraction of the cost. for a hundred for about just over $100,000. Normally, you would to get under 2 seconds, 0 to 60. You're talking a McLaren, which is well over. We're talking $2 million ish normally to get a car that could achieve that feat. So I'm sharing this article as it's one of the biggest stories in the tech
And
sphere
check out
today.
the inside of the car. It's been redesigned. It's a redesigned S, right? So it's got a
Yeah,
horizontal screen and so neat inside.
yeah.
What's
A
a guy
pretty
got to
good
do to
upgrade.
make a
Pretty good
minivan
upgrade.
version of this?
Yeah, it's a gorgeous vehicle. And to go, by the way, if going 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, you this sounds like I'm being hyperbolic here, but you could actually cause a concussion. That's like going in an actual rocket launching to the
Yeah, you
moon.
have to be careful. It's like that's a health warning.
It's literally bordering on dangerous physically to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. That's how fast that.
Kyler,
Yeah,
Tyler, and Cal, I just wanted to comment on the BMW approach because a lot of people forget in perspective, Cal. I know you know very well, and Tyler, that there was an automotive called Carmen Fisker, which
yep,
was American until they were bought by the Chinese.
yep.
And I'm speculating completely that I think what Apple may do is a hybrid, which I've always postulated. Like, I don't think they'll go fully electric. And that would just be a genius move for Apple to do a hybrid. And I think they've been tooling around, and that's just my speculation on that, where you're doing, you're going to do fuel, and you just save both industries globally, politically, and it's mostly electric and gas or, oil
That
based.
is intuitively, Alice, that feels like going back quite a lot. But hey, hang on one second. I just want to, Heidi, are you there right now, Heidi?
I'm
Yeah,
here. Hi,
you're
Cal.
into cars, aren't you? You're into cars. I just wanted to get your, sorry, we'll come back to that discussion, Alice, in a second. But
Oh,
Heidi,
no, let her talk.
no, what do you think about the new Tesla? Have you seen it? I know you're a car buff.
No, I'm not. I'm not Northern California to be into Tesla. We're Southern California. We're more into Lamborghinis.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's probably right.
All right,
So
Alice, yeah,
yeah,
hybrid. Did you want to?
I, I I will
No,
see.
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Heidi done shut me down. I'm done.
So that zero to 60 in
Gals.
2 seconds is
Gabby
like
is
roughly 2 Gs, I
Gabby's
think, or close to it.
Gabby's
Yep.
in the car. Sorry, Chris. Gabby's in the cars as well. But these stats that they come up with, you have to doubt them sometimes because I'm not sure how these are calculated. If they're I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. I mean, you've got all these new models coming out. It's always less than 2 seconds. It's always less than 2.2 seconds. I mean, do they account for wheel spin? I mean, some of the engineers in this room, if they could comment on that, does it account for torque? Does it account for I mean, there's a whole number of things to consider here because Tyler, you're so right. For less than 2 seconds, that's a concussion waiting to happen.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
They
that, just it's hard to imagine how fast that is until you realize it's on the brink of the physically dangerous.
it
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
it's definitely over a G. It's like probably 1.5 to 2 Gs. I'm trying to do the calculations, but it's my kids are sleeping. And then from what I've read, the 0 to 60 is a great number, but the real world is like 5 to 60. And
Yeah,
cars tend to be a little bit slower from 5 to 60 than they're 0 to 60 for some reason. So um, it doesn't matter. That thing's bleedingly fast. I mean,
yep,
if you've ever been on like that Superman ride at Magic Mountain or whatever,
yeah,
this thing's going faster than any roller coaster off of a drop because the roller coaster's doing exactly 1 G. You know.
right. From zero to gravity falling straight down. It's more intense than that. Yeah.
And
So
Chris, to
Dave,
Faraz's point, oh, go ahead. I was just going to say
one
to
second.
Faraz's point, okay, go ahead.
Hold on one second. So I just wanted to thank Maria and Dave for sharing the Apple privacy video that they just released, which I just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account. It's a YouTube
Love
video
that
that you
video.
can, yeah, and it's now you'll start to understand why Apple started a couple of years ago and now is really going headstrong into we are the privacy company. And this is like their mantra. Like I'm imagine they might start doing skywriting above Apple campus, like the home of privacy, because all of this data issues are going to become exponentially more important with all of this hacking and all of the governments and all of the now the governments understand the power of data and how they're going to want it. And so Apple is saying, you can trust us, you can trust us, you can trust us. Oh, by the way, you can't trust Google. I mean, that's
Hey,
essentially
Tyler.
what they're, oh, by the way, you can't trust Facebook. Because, and we know that's what they're thinking, and that's the implicit message here, because in their latest version of their iOS app that they just revealed 2 days ago, that we all watched with our own damn eyes, Apple is now revealing something called transparency mode, a new feature that
Yep.
exposes for the first time ever to you, the Apple customer, which apps are using your data and precisely how they're using it. And they want you to fundamentally not only understand how your data is being used against you, but they want you to retaliate. They want to invigorate you to fight back because these companies who are using your data in this way essentially are Apple's competitors now. And Apple is essentially turning this into a bit of a Cold War this because of this issue of data, because Apple never really used your data in the way that these other companies have, because these other companies are ad networks, and these ad networks are built on your juicy data, and they lick in their
That
juicy
sweet,
lips
juicy data.
when they get your sweet juicy data.
Mike,
And
Michael, wake up. Michael, wake up.
and then but Apple is not an ad network, so they didn't use your data in this way. They are making money by selling you hardware, and they're not that concerned about your data ultimately. But now, right now, we have indications, there have been headlines that indicate that they are building an ad network of their own. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of ad network they're building and how they use the data. But they could say, hey, we are a closed ecosystem. Your data never leaves Apple ever. So we, as an Apple ecosystem, build our ad network in a way where your data is never shared with anybody outside of Apple. So that gets very interesting indeed as a value proposition, which they can then use to weaponize that point, as they are doing with this video that we just tweeted, privacy on iPhone, called Tracked. The name of the video is Tracked, and it's all about Apple tracking transparency. And watch the YouTube video, and you'll see what I mean and why Apple is ranting and raving about
So
why
good.
data and privacy is so important. And that's why our special guest who's going to join us in the next session, 6 or 7 hours from now, is the CEO of a data company. And we're going to learn all about it. So I hope you can join us for that. Go ahead. Sorry,
Hey,
Alex.
Tyler.
Yeah.
I just woke up real quick to pee. I'm about to go back to sleep, and I'll see you guys in the morning. But I wanted to
Okay.
make sure that you knew about, and like someone had to have told you about the room that got hacked earlier, right?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that came
Michael, I
up.
think I
Yeah.
covered that. That was the
Oh,
AI room, Michael? Are you
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah, we covered that earlier, Michael. This
Okay.
is
Cool.
LS.
Cool.
Yeah, it was crazy, but let's not go there.
Yeah, that was
But
wild. I just wanted to make
no,
sure
I
someone
know
told
it
you,
was
Kylie.
no. We did. I did earlier, Michael. Thanks, man. But we did
Michael,
cover that.
remember to
Yes,
mute your
Cheryl.
mic when you sleep.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also when you pee. So you just said you're having a pee break. Please, for the benefit
All
of
right. I'm going to
500
sleep now. I'll
people,
see y'all in the
my
morning. I'll see
friend.
y'all in 6 hours. Good night, everyone.
See you later, man.
Cal,
Good
Who
night,
um,
Mister.
who is there?
Sorry,
no,
who was saying that?
Who
oh,
was
Cal,
there
I
when
was gonna
John
say,
Legere was open mic with taking a pee? Was anyone else there with? I was. Was anyone
Hang,
else
hang,
there when he did that?
hang on,
Okay,
I was
Doctor
there. I was
Hazy.
Heidi's
there.
trying to say something. Dr. Heidi, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I just meant to say I didn't mean to be rude about Tesla. I actually truly don't know the new one. But one thing that ironically, I'm actually in Cupertino right now. And I have to say with Tesla moving and Apple planning to move, I think, 10,000 employees to Texas, you really see the effect on economy here. Like housing has become so much, I call it better, like more houses available, prices are going down, like combination of pandemic and these two, and I'm sure many more, these are the only two I know, moving out of Silicon Valley, it's like really loosened up the economy here, which is nice.
Good to hear. So there's Maria just sent me another related article from the Wall Street Journal that just came out 2 days ago that says Apple's moves to tighten flow of user data leaves advertisers anxious, and that's exactly right. And I'll let me rephrase that for you. Apple's moves to block Zuckerberg leaves him shitting himself in his house. That's the translation for you. Let me translate that into geek speak for you. Um, yeah, but you can read the head. I just tweeted the article, and it's about brands and ad tech firms say the tech giants' push to limit how users are tracked will hurt business, with some questioning privacy rationale. And Apple's going to laugh and say, yeah, well, it's our data, it's our devices. Tough luck. Go fuck yourself. And we're going to build our own network that doesn't violate our users' privacy. It's been fun, everybody. Thanks for playing. And it's our device. And now you know why Facebook announced yesterday their own smartwatch. Why? Well, because they're no longer going to have access to all that juicy, juicy data that they were getting from your phone, and they need their own device to get that juicy data. And if they are not going to try making a smartphone again, they tried that in around 2010, and that didn't work out so well. And you're not going to replace your very much loved smartphone, Apple phone. And they know that, so they're going to build a smartwatch, and they're practically give it away, and they're going to pack it full of sensors to get all that juicy, 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 juicy data that they need to keep those ad networks going. And at the same time, they're going to pivot away from being dependent on an ad network that's dependent on data they no longer have access to into being an e-commerce powerhouse like Pinduoduo out of China, who magically combined the social media with e-commerce, and that was with the secret sauce that Facebook is perfectly positioned to do here in America, and they are quickly doing. And that's why Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg himself went on his own Facebook post to share precisely that on his own personal Facebook profile to say we're now going to help all of these Facebook users not only monetize but make a living from their influence and their connections and the social work of Facebook. And they're right. And they can do that. And we saw it yesterday in a headline from Instagram, where Instagram is now going to allow all of the influencers of Instagram match with all of the little e-commerce shops on Instagram. Say what now? You heard me correctly. Instagram is going to allow you to create little shops on Instagram. And you're thinking, well, I don't have any followers. If I work with my parents to put their little flower shop on Instagram, we don't have any followers. And to that, I say, they got you covered, my friend, because what they're going to do is find all of the influencers who have all of the visibility and discoverability and match them with your little flower shop, which has no followers at all. And then that influencer is going to be encouraged to sell all kinds of products and services. And there's going to be a very smart algorithm that matches the influencers with the shop owners. And when the influencer does sell some flowers, they will get a little commission for driving that traffic to your rather invisible little flower shop or shoe shop or cupcake shop or whatever it is. And that, my friends, is the future of e-commerce, and it's trillions of dollars. It's potentially even bigger than Facebook's dying ad network that no longer has the data they need from Apple and Google. So now you understand the big game being played on that front. Simultaneously, they're diving into two other meta huge trillion-dollar industries: medical, and that race is between Amazon and Apple and Google. Sorry, it's really Amazon and Google and Walmart in the US, and now Tata in India. And then they're simultaneously going to jump into insurance eventually, which relates to medical. And then they're jumping into the voice platforms, and VR is the other massive industry, and the autonomous vehicles, and that the autonomous vehicle delivery network that's going to deliver every product and service that when you buy those flowers from Instagram, how do they get to your house, and everything else that everyone's buying online, because people are going to buy everything online in the near future, and who deliver all of those products and services and people is a race between Google and Tesla and maybe Apple. That's why they just hired, just in the past hour, these announcements that they just hired BMW's head of electric and autonomous vehicles. So it looks like Apple's going to jump into this race. Clearly, Google's in the race. Clearly, Tesla's in the race. Clearly, Amazon's in the race. And now with Apple entering, it's going to be very interesting. And make no mistake, when these big tech companies go into these huge industries of medical and autonomous delivery vehicle networks, they are not going to let little startups compete. They are going to acquire them up like the little tiny ponies they are when they're born, so they don't become unicorns. And that's where the regulators come in and say that, hey, that's not fair. And that's why you're seeing the EU and the UK and the US all, by the way, 24 hours ago, it was just revealed. And Politico, the political, probably the best and most notable political publication, has claims they saw the 5 new bills that were just introduced in Congress specifically to address this issue of these huge tech companies sucking up all of the future potential competitors while they're still very embryonic. And the bills specifically address this issue. And that was 24 hours ago. So everything we are talking about is all happening in the past week, by the way. So this is all cutting edge shit that you will not really be able to connect all dots, because due to the power of Clubhouse, we can sit in a room, connect all these dots together with all of the brain power and brain trust of these beautiful, sexy, wonderful people on stage. And if you want to be a beautiful, sexy, wonderful, enlightened individual, you can do so too by simply clicking on the title of this room, following the Tech News Club, and you will be wealthy and handsome and gorgeous. You'll find the love of your life. You'll gain 5 IQ points. You might even grow a few inches. Some new
In
Tech
just
News Club,
90 days. In
yeah,
just 90 days.
your results may
Just
vary.
look at some of the results.
Yeah,
Look at Dave. Like it's
look at these beautiful people on stage. Some people are reporting losing weight. By the way, some people have found the loves of their life. Some people are finding piles of money on the street. I mean, magic happens when you join the Tech
yeah,
News
they just
Club.
walk around the street and there's money on the streets.
Yeah,
That's just
but
there.
If
your
you miss a
results may vary.
day,
But
if
The
you miss a
luck.
day, there's side effects. Tyler, why
yes,
don't you
thank
show
you.
the side
Thank you,
effects?
Faraz. Yes, we must, of course, mention there are, of course, side effects. If you, Cheryl, if you don't mind, can we show the before and after? Because this is very serious. Actually, Cheryl had to step out for
She
a
may not
second.
be there, but you basically lose your hair. You
Yeah,
know.
I'll do
basically.
it now. Do it
Okay,
now.
Uh,
so just so you can see the very unfortunate consequence that Florian and I have fallen victim to, we've realized there are, in fact, very serious side effects. It turns out, when you see my photo from
Okay,
48 hours
PTR.
ago, go ahead and click on Cheryl's photo and refresh
Consult
your
your
screen.
physician before you enter into the 90-day program.
Right, so click on Cheryl's photo. You'll see an update. That was me 48 hours ago. And I missed Tech News Around the World for 2 days, and my hair fell out. And so take that for
so
what it
yeah,
is.
but results may vary.
Your
Results
results may
may
vary.
vary.
And by the way,
Good
Just
you don't,
stuff.
wanna caveat this.
yeah,
Dr.
don't
Terms
let
and
Hadi's
this,
conditions
here. I
apply.
got to do the right
So,
thing. You know,
yeah,
results may
terms
vary,
and
right?
conditions do apply, but don't let this happen to
Yes.
you.
hair
Okay?
products.
Let this be a warning to everybody. Don't miss Tech News tomorrow, and don't let your goddamn hair fall out like it happened to me.
What
It's a
would you say,
tragedy.
Don't
Vijay,
Fiona?
even
Vijay
don't
got
even
laser
miss
Well,
it
eyes.
hang on. What did
tonight.
wait,
I,
Fiona commented. I just always love her. What'd you
Oh,
what'd you
thank you. I just actually the side about the shampoo, but the other thing is that I had to take a moment there. So I was one of the chosen ones. Can you imagine it, by BMW to drive the Active E? I test drove it, and then I see that my fleet. I see my car now online that it was crushed in May 23rd, 2014, because it had stalled. It had fallen off the freeway. It had more than 17 times it was on a flatbed truck. So good luck getting the same designer to work now for Apple. I just thought I'd pitch that one
Okay.
in, even though my Stressless is causing me hair raising issues, but it's not about the car, it's about the
But
mindset.
Fiona, you
Breathe,
pressed the
Fiona.
button though, didn't you? You pressed the green button. I'm sure you did, right? Because you're looking good for it.
Oh, well, there you have it. But I'm just remembering, actually talking about the button. I remember my daughter pushing the button inside this first Active E car in the parking lot of our charter school that we helped to collaboratively build out, and called Ocean Charter in LA. And the cops arrived. I had no idea that somebody could take over in 2013, take over your life and have people show up because your daughter had pushed a button inside of the car. And look where we've come. You know, it takes us a lot to think about what advances have we done. But most interesting was, even at that time, there was somebody listening in your car. So who's listening in right now in Clubhouse?
Well,
Cheers.
that was
Thanks.
our first article. It's the Indian dog agencies, and to name just a few.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then you've got to go over and see why HackerOne is one of my friend's best companies. Like,
hmm
everybody needs to hire the right hackers to hack inside of their company.
Yes.
But
HackerOne.
I'm
1 second, LS. HackerOne, and I'll bring the HackerOne team in to talk about it. They've spoken at my events in the past, and then one of HackerOne's third largest prize earner, Franz, who's considered one of the best hackers in the world because he's the third largest earner on the HackerOne network and making millions of dollars a year on HackerOne. And what it is it's a platform. So you as a company can hire hackers to do penetration testing on your site, and then but when they do find something, a vulnerability, they will report it to you. And you can make a prize and say, we're going to give a prize to whoever can find the most interesting vulnerability on our site. And these white hat hackers come in and they do penetration testing on your site, find vulnerabilities, report them to you, and whoever finds the most interesting vulnerability wins a very substantial prize. And that startup has done incredibly well. And then on this note, here's a headline that Poppy just found a few minutes ago that I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, which are the first letters of tech news around the world. Check it out. It says, secretive Israeli cyber firm selling spy tech to Saudi Arabia. And this is being reported from within Israel on Hertz, one of their leading publications, that Israel does make the best cybersecurity tech. That's sort of a given in 2021, and they are selling it. And that's why there are so many unicorns coming out of Tel Aviv in 2021, because there's so much hacking going on around the world. And all of those companies who get hacked, like today, EA got hacked, and you better believe all of EA and all of their competitors are on the phone with Tel Aviv saying, God help us. And we know you guys build the best solutions to this stuff. And how much do you want? We need it right now. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of unicorns coming out of Tel Aviv, because they make the best cybersecurity. So, but the fact that Saudi Arabia is buying cybersecurity from Israel becomes very interesting indeed. And that's why I just retweeted out that article. Thank you to Poppy for finding that one. And then, as we mentioned, and I'll retweet this again, hackers stole a ton of data from EA today. Poppy's sharing that one. And here's a few more important articles that are just popping up that I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account. Big tech going.
Tyler,
Hold on 1 second,
if
please. Hold on 1 second, please. Big tech is going public in India. Companies such as e-commerce leader Flipkart and fintech giant Paytm are doing huge IPOs in India, and that is an incredibly positive sign for the Indian startup and investment ecosystem, and that will drive investors from all over the world now to take India very seriously and finally give it the respect and attention that it deserves. Go ahead. Was that Maria?
Yeah, that was me. I just wanted to kind of comment on this, whole privacy and advertising and the future of social commerce that I think both you and I and also Dave are big fans of.
Mm-hmm.
And just wanted to say that in the end of the day, I think, well, advertising and privacy will still coexist. It's just that everything is going to move into contextual advertising. So I think the only kind of beef I have with those ads that Apple has, this ad that Apple has launched, is that it portrays the future of privacy as if there was like no advertising to the end user, and it's not true. So that's the only thing that is just going to be a bit more, it will be based on a bit more generic data, but the data is still going to be collected in some sense. And I think a lot of people just don't understand what data is collected anyway via the SDKs, the apps. So that's that. But actually, there's one other thing that I was thinking about is that the future is very interesting. If like with this like no code coding is going to become very easy to use for people, then everyone actually will end up having their own app. And in the end, it's very interesting what's going to happen to the distribution of signals. And I think maybe Michelle has more to say about that, like with what Facebook is doing with their new product. But I think what's changing right now from this like centric world where we had all the data from actually the identifier from Apple to now just the distribution channels being a little bit more granular, and it's just going to be more difficult, but maybe also more interesting.
Indeed,
Yeah,
it
So
is.
just to maybe quickly add to that, Maria. This is Michelle speaking.
Yep.
I just wanted to say that I think what's going to be interesting in this whole ad ecosystem changing is that it may actually make the dominant even stronger, given
That's right.
that if you're a small app owner, how do you actually grow your app when you can't efficiently reach people who have the intention to maybe use your app? And that's why you may actually have to develop your own mini ecosystem within those larger ecosystem, for
Yeah,
instance, building your shops on Facebook or Instagram and never leaving those walled garden, because within those walled garden, you're able to efficiently reach people at the lower cost. So I think people don't necessarily look at that side of things. And by the way, not having opting out doesn't mean you stop seeing ads. You still see ads, except that they're not personalized.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
only difference.
Yeah, I think
Oh, but
specifically in gaming, we also talk a lot about like the future of like really entrepreneurship. That exactly everyone will have to enter a walled garden that is already there and is big, and like the kind of the spirit of bootstrapping and being a small startup in the like app ecosystem is really being endangered in that sense, right? And then this is why I mean it's great to have tools like for that Facebook is doing and Google with Stripe and all of that, but actually it means that you are enabled to really build your own platform that is like meaningful and like really at scale, and you really need to initially go and only work with someone who's like really big already to get some visibility.
So to dovetail on the social commerce piece, not necessarily from the app developer standpoint, but there was an article in today's Bangkok Post that said that Visa is partnering with a local e-payment startup that will work across the social platforms. So Line, which is what a lot of Thai people and businesses use, Insta, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, to facilitate their social commerce purchases and transactions. And then embedded in that article, there was a study conducted that 77% of people in Thailand use QR codes at least once per week to make transactions. So I think we're going to see, a facilitation of those processes as small and medium sized companies, continue to grow their presence in social media platforms and commerce.
Well, also, Lakeisha, Apple Clips are all about that, right? All about the location of your business and your ability to use Apple Clips, so another ad format that they have with like an NFT code and then NFC code, I think. Sorry. So probably QR codes are also going to come back there.
Yep.
And if I can add, this is just LS on this point, but I was going to cover another point, but I'll skip that because this is my space. For the small business and Michelle, decentralization, MasterCard just announced something yesterday that they're helping to fund in Africa through their foundation, the executive chairman. That I think what we're going to see is a decentralization, almost like blockchain and Bitcoin. I've said this before, but Facebook won't go away. It'll be sort of a hybrid between the two. And you'll see like local small businesses, and Tyler and Cal, we talked about this in the past, but you're going to see local become the new global, and they'll build their own ecosystem, similar to crowdfunding. Like people wouldn't have never thought that. It's more in the U.S. like raise fund and raise, fundraising, et cetera, and donations. You're going to see this movement where smaller communities and local communities will have that sort of foothold, but then it will scale and they will need bigger platforms to connect with and partner with to scale. But it won't be the reverse where they just go to them and advertise completely for them. That's what I see coming.
Just to maybe
Well,
quickly clarify, because the reality is that today, I mean, it's actually the bigger pool of data that makes it more powerful. So, and you won't be able to send people to a website and actually understand who made a purchase. And this is Google is also going to make the similar changes by next year. So that's the point I'm trying to make today. Technically, if you have a website and you're sending traffic to your website or trying to grow your business, it will be increasingly difficult. So I do understand the decentralization, but I mean, more specifically, if you have 1 million users, leveraging existing those platforms data to empower that through machine learning actually makes it more efficient from a business standpoint. So I think that's what's going to become challenging. And I'm talking about something happening now, and I'm sure in the future we'll see some blockchain implementation, but I don't picture how that will help a business decrease their cost by 100% when they're trying to
Oh,
scale in 10 countries, for instance. No.
Michelle, quickly, I'm only talking local, and I'm talking about a mobile app maker with AI and machine learning, which is something I'm building, full disclosure. And my team can do it, and we're already executing it. But what you're talking about is I'm talking about micro data, not macro data or metadata for them and their customer base, and then adding new acquisitions, because most local businesses will only go in a 10-mile location of where they're at. And this has been proven, and that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I was specifically speaking about. I'm not talking about horizontal, but specifically narrow vertical data points. And that will be an opt-in for the app provider, that business owner and their customers, which it almost goes back 20 years ago, which businesses would always know who your cleaners was. They know what your clothes, they knew your data. They just didn't have it in metabytes, or zeros and ones, but they knew exactly everything I wanted to buy, what I knew, my clothes clean, all of that. That's what I'm saying.
I
well,
think it would be more tangible seeing an implementation of that in action actually working, but it sounds interesting.
so on the topic of buying, that's the key word here, because that's a lot of what it ultimately all this data comes down to is what you're going to buy, because that's where the data turns into cash and dollars, by the way. They're not interested in this data just for data's sake, by the way. They're interested in that juicy dollars that it translates into eventually. There's actually a super interesting headline that just broke here. It's kind of breaking news. Netflix, which you've no doubt heard of, and shopping. Say what? Yeah, you heard me correctly. Online store offers limited edition merchandise. Netflix will launch an online store to sell limited edition apparel, lifestyle merchandise, and collectibles based on Stranger Things, Lupin, and its other popular shows, the streaming giant said on Thursday. And guess who's powering this store, y'all?
GameStop.
Shopify.
Is it Shopify?
Shopify. It's Shopify, y'all. So if you've been following here and you might have made your own decision to buy a bunch of Shopify stock because you understand that all of these platforms that have eyeballs are going to start selling shit and they're going to use Shopify to do that. You were correct. And Netflix just announced they've just partnered with Shopify so they can translate all of that juicy eyeballs into juicy money. So now when you go to Netflix and you watch a show, it'll be like, oh, you like that show? Why don't you buy the merch from that show? Get a t-shirt, get a mug, whatever the hell. Maybe even the actors in the show had some products or services as part of the show you can now buy after the show. And that, my friends, is the future of what we're calling social commerce. And that's why it's such a big deal, and Shopify, more than others, is the enabler of this. And that's why you might want to think about Shopify as a company that might be growing a lot in the near future.
So
Um,
what do we see? What do we see as the last mile, like an Uber or something like this?
Yeah. So if the golden age of social commerce is coming to an end. Yeah, Shopify is just killing it.
No,
And
I was actually being very serious this time. I know
He
I'm
was
usually the
asking a
joker.
serious question.
No, I
well,
was at because like it's not
Poor
going to be
guy.
UPS, right? Like you're not shipping things, so
uh-huh.
is
Well,
it
this,
like someone coming to pick it up, or you're driving it over, or?
Drones,
yeah.
Chris. It's drones.
Yeah. Well, he's right. It'll be some combination of an autonomous vehicle, drones, or some robots with wheels, driving on the sidewalks, depending on how far you are from the source of the thing you just purchased on Netflix. And what's interesting about Shopify is it connects to all the small mom and pop shops all over the planet. Anyone can sell anything on Shopify, unlike Amazon, which is exclusive to kind of more professional class sellers. Shopify is everything in your town and all the towns around you. So you probably could have it delivered by a drone from somebody within your own town or the town next to you. Very interesting indeed that Netflix has now partnered with Shopify to enable social. I just tweeted this article out. I want to make sure that I did because, by the way, I told you so. I've been telling you so for about 3 months now that this was coming, and here it is. Now it's Netflix. Who's
By the way,
next?
this is
Well,
a big deal, Tyler. This is a
yeah,
big deal evidence of your hypothesis because
yeah.
just just because this is now a direct connection to content creation because that's what Netflix is. It's all content that somebody has created, right? And you've seen a direct connection now. So that hypothesis, that
Um,
thesis, if you like, is
yeah.
just totally
So
playing
what?
out.
So Cal is confirming, and anyone on stage who's joined us every day can confirm. I've been saying for damn near 3 months now that Netflix was going to do this, and not just Netflix. All the social media platforms, all of them. Anyone who's got eyeballs, Tinder is going to start selling shit. Everyone who has eyeballs is now going to partner with Shopify to make e-commerce to sell you stuff. And in fact, it's only a matter of time before we start selling you tech news around the world coffee mugs powered by Shopify. That's and you're going to see a
Now,
partnership between.
Tyler, Tyler, question here. So
Yeah.
when will there be a moment when I can monetize my eyeballs, my attention on something as
That
a
could be solved.
But
You
let me
can, you
finish
can
this up.
already. You
Yeah,
can
let me
already.
finish.
Tyler, remember the robot cafe in Tokyo? The
Yes,
disabled people are using their eyeballs to work.
yes, right. Yeah,
That's a
well, they're
great
not.
example.
They
Yeah.
could potentially monetize that. You could, Florin, if you want to operate a robot in a Tokyo robot cafe, and you might work for tips in that cafe, unless they start paying you hourly or something like that. Um, but the Clubhouse itself is very interesting and relates directly to this story about Netflix and Shopify. Why? Because Netflix has lots of shows. It's content, just like YouTube and just like TikTok. Now, Netflix has the shows. And by the way, Netflix is trying to now, they've got what they call long form content, 30-minute plus content that people are binge watching. And they also want to start doing short form content, like little YouTube videos, 2-minute videos. And they even want to start doing 30-second videos, which is TikTok, because TikTok's exploding as well. And by the way, YouTube is also starting to add TikTok content. And they are right now. You probably have noticed in the last week, they now have this new little carousel of little 30-second clips. Facebook is doing it as well. They all realize that TikTok is exploding. And TikTok is also partnering with e-commerce to enable the content creators on TikTok to start selling shit, just like Instagram influencers are, right? So you see where this is going. Now, hold on. Back to Netflix. Where does Clubhouse fit into this? Well, glad you asked. Netflix has a whole bunch of shows. Spotify has a whole bunch of artists. What if Netflix had, at the end of the show, a room, and there was a room, join the conversation about this show you just watched, and it's a room of 1,000 people who are all fans of that show talking about what just happened in that episode? And what if Clubhouse did a partnership with Netflix, where the Netflix app, next time you open the Netflix app on your phone, there's the show, and then under the show, there's the Clubhouse room to talk about the show. And you could sit in there and talk for days and days and days until the next episode comes along and people are talking about episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3. And every show in all of Netflix and every movie in all of Netflix would have its own Clubhouse room for people to talk about their favorite documentary they just watched and everything else. It would actually be, I think, completely additive to Netflix. And if that room is created and is shown in the Netflix app, why not also show it in the Clubhouse hallway as well? So it's just one of the thousands of rooms that you could dive into in Clubhouse. You don't actually need to be in Netflix to do it. And what if the NFL also did this, and every NFL game that was coming up tomorrow or that was happening in real time or just happened also had a room for that? And what if every Disney movie in the Disney Plus app had their own rooms, and on and on and on and on and on? So you can see how whoever, if Clubhouse understands this amazing business development opportunity, Clubhouse will become incredibly powerful. However, Twitter obviously understands this opportunity, and the issue is who's going to open up their APIs to enable this? Because yesterday, Twitter Spaces team and I and Pierre from Club Deck were in that room with them, and they were talking all about their APIs and how their APIs can be used by other apps to bring Twitter Spaces to other third-party apps. I'm praying and hoping the Clubhouse team is listening and is building APIs to allow third-party apps like Netflix, like Disney Plus, like the NFL, any app that has lots of eyeballs, to create rooms in those apps that could then also be shown in the hallway. So now you understand how Clubhouse fits into this. But by the way, Clubhouse being eyeballs, more like earballs, could also do a kind of e-commerce situation. And I could have a match, just like the Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers are going to be matched with shops that are selling stuff from everywhere. I could be promoting all kinds of products and services in real time. And we could make a Shopify shop in the next hour and start selling Tech News Around the World merch, t-shirts and hats and coffee mugs and whatever you want, which we probably should do, because I would love a Tech News Around the World coffee cup my damn self. So,
And
yeah, give
T-shirts
it,
signed by Dave. Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm
caps,
gonna
Yeah.
pay for
caps.
this
Yes,
T-shirt.
yes.
You
Do you know, in the
know,
shower the other day, I
What
have
a
to
biblical
confess,
scripture, Dave.
I have to confess, in the shower the other day, I thought I'd really like a really nice fitted black T-shirt with everyone's like little face on the back of it. I think it would be just so cool. Anyway,
yeah,
that's sad, isn't it?
So
that's the best you can come up with, Dave. That's I'm sure the
speaking of,
Bad.
creativity of this
Just a
team.
quick question, Tyler. This is Michelle
yes, Michelle.
speaking.
Yeah.
Um, why would you? What's in it for, let's say, Netflix to open their API for things like Clubhouse, so the content could be, let's say, they now start having rooms on Netflix. Why should they do that?
Because then you've got your audience in your Netflix app staying long after they've watched the show, staying for hours to talk about the show and just driving fanism about that show. I think it would enrich the
Okay,
fan experience.
I thought it was already taking into account that they probably moving into the audio space as well. I shared it
Yep.
with you earlier. They
Yeah, I
hiring a head
see.
of
I
audio.
see what
So
you did, Michelle.
what's interesting is why would they do that
You
if
sneaky
they're
little
moving
fox,
into that
Michelle. Now,
space? You know.
Michelle, this little lady, Michelle, here on stage, just DM'd me the job posting that Netflix just put up for a head of audio, y'all. Hello. Well done, Michelle. I will retweet it out. Jobs.netflix.com hiring for a head of audio. And by the way, what if those little clubhouse rooms about those Netflix shows? What if Netflix got the stars of those shows to come into those rooms? Oh, hello. Did somebody say cash register? Did somebody say money falling from the sky? Yes, the cast and crew of those Netflix shows could jump into those audio rooms, those clubhouse rooms with those fans who are hanging out there all day long. And now you just got a glimpse of the future of content and commerce, my friends. You're very welcome. It's called Tech News Around the World. And we meet here twice a day, every day, Monday to Friday. Click on the title of the room to see the schedule. Click the follow the club, but only if you want to be handsome and beautiful and successful, wealthy and happy. If you don't want those things, but then please do not click to join the Tech News Club, because success and wealth is in your future. And if you don't want that, that's fine. Many people do not. There are
You
other
might
rooms.
in the future get a T-shirt with everyone's faces on it, signed by Dave and designed by Dave.
I know it's such
What
a
a perk!
it's
And
an amazing image.
we might do it as an NFT even, because here's a headline from Reuters.com that I just retweeted. There was an NFT that just sold of a little photo, a tiny little crazy little piece of art. It looks like a child's drawing, and it just sold for about $12 million. What am I talking about? It's called a CryptoPunk. What are the CryptoPunks? The CryptoPunks were the first legitimate uh, uh, AI generated art series that was put on the blockchain in the form of NFTs on the Ethereum chain. If I recall correctly, I think it's on Ethereum. May will correct me. But the CryptoPunks are these cute little aliens, and there's a limited number of them. I think there's 10,000 of them, if I'm correct, or 1,000, something like that. 10,000. And there's 10,000 of them, and people were buying them originally for pennies and essentially for free originally. And now one of these 10,000 CryptoPunks just sold for $12 million, which means pretty much all of them, all 10,000 of them, are probably worth about $12 million each. So for those very fortunate 10,000 people who got those very early CryptoPunk um, AI generated little alien characters that were minted on the blockchain, which means they are limited edition. They can't really be replicated. They're trackable. They're known who owns each of these 10,000. And now somebody sold one of their CryptoPunks on Sotheby's for $11.8 million. Holy cow, y'all. That's a really interesting validation for the future of AI generated art and for NFTs as a system for selling art. It's truly remarkable. That is indeed also part of a very interesting part of content and the future of content. Um,
Tyler,
yes,
the
yes,
thing is that we could actually call that the cyberpunk coin, because if you know
Correct.
that there are
Yes.
10,000 of them,
yeah,
that is really staggering.
yes, it is very staggering.
Yeah, it's a derivative off of the cyberpunks from the tech side, and it was
Yeah.
done in crypto. I don't want to say because, well, it was done a while ago, much later than what's being reported right now. Several years ago, I'll say that. And it's interesting how it's taken off now as NFTs.
So a couple headlines I need to jump through
Yeah,
real quickly.
yeah.
Go on.
I have a really important one that we really need to get out.
Go ahead.
I posted the register. Apparently, there is an old bug in the Linux kernel that has been patched now, and this is something called the policy kit. The pol kit is the one that
Yeah.
actually looks if a user on a Linux system needs
Good enough.
escalation or not.
Johan, for the one
Yeah,
person in this room of 600 people, they know exactly what you mean and they're already on the case. So,
but this is tech news, real
yeah,
tech.
it is. And the one person who's using Linux in this room is just as excited as you are, and they know what you mean when you said that headline. And for the other 553 people in this room who have no idea what you're talking about, we're just going to move right along because the one person who got your message and they took it to heart and they are racing to patch that vulnerability as we speak. Apple says its new logon tech is easy as passwords but far more secure with what they call pass keys in iCloud Keychain. The iPhone maker joins Microsoft and Google in advocating for passwordless authentication. And that's a lot of gobbledygook, and let me unpack it for my mom in the room. What this means is Google and Apple and Microsoft are trying to get rid of passwords. It's as simple as that. They hate them because the passwords get hacked and they get shared on the dark web, and the hackers get these and then hack the goddamn Colonial Pipeline, because that's actually what happened. It turns out that the Colonial Pipeline wasn't really a hack. It was that the passwords were on what we call the dark web, where the hackers share databases of passwords they've got access to. And that's very dangerous. Why? Because if you reuse your password for multiple websites, say you use the same password like I love kitties for Clubhouse, and then you use it again for Twitter, well, we can then assume you might use it for your bank. So if we see that you've used a password for Clubhouse and Twitter, we're going to run and try the five. We see you're American. We go to the five big American banks and we try that password with your same email address. Bada boom, bada bing. Thank you for all of your money. Right? Don't do that. Don't reuse passwords. I just explained to you why. Apple and Google and Microsoft understand how incredibly important this is, and they know that people are stupid. And they know that even though we scream and jump up and down all day long and say don't do this, people are still going to do this and use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as their password. By the way, sorry, I didn't mean to leak your password. By the way, that's about 30% of all passwords are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just to show you how stupid people are. So And that's a fact. That's been mathematically proven over and over and over again. When hackers get these databases of passwords, some very good percentage of the passwords are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. By the way, or 1 2 3 4 5
The
6 or 1 2 3 4. So Apple
when we do
now,
that though, Tyler, we
yeah.
operate under the assumption that no one would ever guess that we would be that dumb to do it.
Yes, spy versus spy, right? So Apple now has come up with their new genius solution to your stupidity problem, and they call it passkeys. And how it works is they demo it so now you don't use passwords at all. You simply only use your face and just your face, no passwords needed. Google's trying to come up with solutions as well where you don't use passwords at all. You just get a code sent to your phone that you click I verify. It's me on my hardware, my separate device, separate from the website I'm logging into. And all Google and Apple and Microsoft are trying to get rid of passwords. There's also a little hardware key that is becoming incredibly popular called YubiKey, based out of Stockholm, which Google is partnered with. To every Google employee is using it now, and that's interesting. That is, by the way, the best solution when you have an actual hardware key, like a physical key, like you put in your door of your house. People don't tend to lose those. So if you have a physical key that you plug into your phone or to your laptop, it's like a USB-C key, or they even work now over Bluetooth, so you don't even have to plug it in, although that can be hacked. So be careful. And that's just a huge development that you're gonna start seeing more and more and more of that as the weeks and days go by. So I retweeted that. Another huge trend that is on the horizon that you need to know about now, that no one else is really talking about, but needs to be talked about and will be talked about, and you likely will appear as a porn star in an upcoming video. That's why we need to talk about it now. It's called the double exploitation of deep fake porn. Discussions around deepfakes have focused on the political danger, but revenge porn, as it's called, and IP theft are the more pressing threats. We just tweeted this out. Thank you to whoever tweeted it in. And read this article, because if your face can be put very easily now on the body of any porn star, and then it looks like you are naked on the internet. And people can not only, as we go into VR porn, now your face is put on the body of a VR porn star and people are having sex with you in VR. So you can understand how concerning this is, and people don't know what to do about it yet. But read the article that we just tweeted out about the double exploitation of deep fake porn, because deep fakes are, you can make Obama say anything you want him to say, or there's videos you've seen Tom Cruise saying all kinds of crazy stuff that it looks exactly like Tom Cruise. These videos are now becoming impossible to differentiate between if it's Tom Cruise or not. Is it a deep fake of Tom Cruise, or is it the real Tom Cruise, or is that really Donald Trump saying, he, crazy stuff, or is it the real Donald? It's hard. It's the reality is blurring, and in the very, very near future, you will not be able to tell the difference if it's fake or real or not, and that gets incredibly troubling when you apply it to porn. So, yeah, the powerful combination of deepfakes and revenge porn. Revenge porn is your people who hate you taking your photos or finding photos about you when you're naked, and then it makes your deepfake porn even 10 times more realistic because they actually have photos of your body in a bikini or whatever. It gets very crazy indeed. So that issue is going to become huge in weeks and months to come. So just touching on that quickly now. And another issue that is exploding at the moment is these issues of these drones and the militarization of drones, and how drones are now being used in military capacities, and how they are very cheap. They can now it's now been reported that we've now seen the first potential case of a drone being used to kill somebody in a military kind of campaign in Libya, where you can attach weapons to drones. You might even use nerve agents or poisons on drones, and they even have little drones the size of bumblebees that can be used in this capacity. And that's very concerning, because places in the world where there are border conflicts, where you have resource-strapped, aggressive behaviors like Hamas, and they could use these drones in very nefarious, dystopian ways that would be truly mind-blowing. And so the article that we just tweeted out from Wired, which I love Wired, by the way, Wired has a video where you can watch a drone swarm, meaning a group of drones, fly through a fake forest without crashing into anything. Because these drones have these AIs that are incredibly intelligent, and they have collision detection, and they can fly fast and furious through a crowd of people without bumping into any of them. And they do have, as Sid no, not Sid, as Sal informed us, there are processors on these drones. This is happening. This is real. They have facial detection capability on these drones. So you could have a very tiny drone with nerve agents that Navalny knows a whole lot about, and any Putin critic is very well aware of these nerve agents that can put people out very easily. And you could get a bumblebee-sized drone with nerve agents, with facial detection, with collision detection, and send it through a crowd of people, an actual real crowd of walking people in any city, and it could use the facial detection and take out anybody like that willy-nilly. And now we have a very real threat where anybody can be taken out for less than $1,000 and a little bit of homemade technology. So watch the video that we just tweeted out from Wired of a drone swarm flying through a fake forest without crashing to highlight the collision detection algorithms. And just keep in mind, they also have facial recognition algorithms, and they also have the ability to become weaponized. So that's a concerning trend that no doubt you'll be hearing more about in the weeks and months to come. A quick few other headlines, because we have 3 minutes before our friend Florian kicks off his room. Vertical win for American and something called Avalon. It's a company, has raised $4 billion in pre-orders for their eVTOL aircraft. And why is that so interesting? Because it's a vertical aerospace, the developer of an electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And they just received an incredibly huge order from American Airlines, which is incredibly huge, one of probably America's largest airlines, has ordered a whole lot of these full electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And why is that important? Well, because then you don't need traditional runways. And what does that mean? That means you're going to have a lot more airports popping up all over the place, because building in airports is very expensive in terms of real estate, et cetera, due to the long runways. But if you're using vertical takeoff and landing vehicles and electric aircraft, that's a game changer. So we retweeted that out, and you can do the deep dive on that. And that's very interesting indeed. It looks like we will have those in our lifetime, in the near future.
Just
And it
just
gets,
watch the job listings in the LA area. There's all these jobs for head of engineering, for vertical takeoff, for Kia, for Hyundai. I mean, I'm seeing it on my LinkedIn and stuff. So it's coming. That's why I thought a couple months ago that Apple was going to have a flying car. That was really out of nowhere, but when you see all the ads, when you hear that Apple and Hyundai were, talking really seriously, that's kind of obviously the future. It's just crazy. We're going to see it like in our lifetime, like you say.
uh-huh. Well, by the way, there's kind of troubling news. Well, the water levels are now dropping in the southwestern U.S. to unprecedented levels. It's being reported by NBC News, America's biggest news outlet, that Lake Mead's water levels dropped to lowest point in history. Declining water levels in the nation's largest reservoir are the result of the ongoing drought and growing water demands across southwestern U.S. And there's a time lapse, a really amazing multi-year time-lapse video of Lake Mead and how it's now becoming dry, and that's going to become a huge problem for the habitability of the southwest of America. As I've warned previously in Tech News Around the World, we are entering the age of what's called water stress, and this is very real, and it's why I'm in Thailand. Hello from my tropical island paradise, because I'm very well aware of what's coming, and I'm warning you as my friends and family that this thing called water stress is going to change your life in a very fundamental way in the next 5 to 10 years. Get ready. Here's what it is. Google the words water stress map, and you will see what parts of the world will become uninhabitable in the next 5 to 10 years and will cause a migration of about 50 million people in the next 5 to 10 years. And for context, 1 million people leaving Syria into Europe brought Europe to its knees politically. And watch what happens when 50 times that number of people are going to be moving in the next 5 to 10 years due to water shortages all over the world, India as well. So watch the map that's called water stress map. You're going to have places on the planet are going to very soon become uninhabitable, just like the southwest of the US due to the unprecedented drying of Lake Mead. So we tweeted that article out, and now you know why the next article from Toyota says Toyota establishes Toyota Ventures Climate Fund, accelerating efforts to achieve carbon neutrality, and all kinds of money is going into impact investing to reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere. It's why Tesla is doing what it's doing. That's why Toyota is announcing today the Toyota Ventures Climate Fund of $150 million to help fund new solutions to get us out of this shitstorm we have found ourselves in of this water stress, which is really the
A
first.
great segue for the next room, Tyler, by the way.
Indeed,
Exactly
yeah,
in it.
not
Impact
not a
investing
coincidence,
and business
Florian.
inclusion.
Not my
Not a
first,
You're
coincidence.
too
not
smart.
not my first rodeo,
The
Florian.
Yeah,
sequencing
I figured that out.
the
Okay.
sequencing was
I know what
genius.
you're doing
I'm
here,
opening the
Tyler.
room.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
know what you're doing.
So Florian's opening the room now, all about this topic. It's critically important. Please join us in Florian's room, which is now 1 minute past the top of the hour. He's 1 minute late in opening the room. It'll open right now. We're all going to head over there and talk about the big shit storm we have found ourselves in. Water stress is the first real terrible impact we are going to feel as a result of climate change. The other will be the rising oceans. That's secondary. The water stress is going to be far more impactful in the short term. The water rising is no trivial thing either. That's going to also cause lots of migration, climate related migration. But the water stress is the one that's going to just rock people in the very near term, really in the next few years. In fact, it's already starting. And in fact, the Syria is attributed in large part to the lack of water, the drought that was happening in Syria. That the domino effects of that has had a rather strong impact for a lot of people, and the Europeans know exactly what I'm talking about. So join us in Florian's room, which he should have open in the next 1 second. Do follow the Tech News Club. Do thank everybody on stage for the fantastic contributions today. It was a lot of fun as usual, and hopefully see you in the next session where we will have a data company CEO join us to help us go